Join the Cougar Collective today, your home base for all NIL opportunities, connecting student athletes, fans, and business owners. Join the 1890 Club for as little as $18.90. You can also make a one-time donation. And if you're a business, you can collaborate your brand. Also, drink the Old Crimson Legendary Lager brewed by Pike Brewing. Sales benefit the Cougar Collective. Visit cougarcollective.org. Go Cougs!
You can say, fuck you, Oregon and Washington, because that's the reason we're playing Hawaii for homecoming. I mean, it's not the Cougs' fault. It's the asshats.
Well, LA schools get some blame, too. Hey, and with that, we start Old Crimson. It's all brought to you by the Cougar Collective, your home base for all NIL opportunities. They're helping student athletes, fans, business owners. You all can be involved. You can join hashtag Mighty by Many in supporting student athletes on and off the field. You can join the 1890 Club for as little as $18.90 a month. It's the best way to support the Cougar NIL. You can also make a one-time donation if you'd like. If you're a business, you can collaborate on your brand. You can drink Old Crimson Legendary Lager, which is brewed by Pike Brewing. Sales benefit the Cougar Collective. Visit cougarcollective.org. Also, Flat Stick Pub. Big thanks to Andy Largent and the crew. Cougar owned and operated. They got 6 amazing locations across the state. Kirkland, Pioneer Square, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. They've got you covered for date night, guys night, ladies night, large group event, great for kids, and of course, great place to watch and celebrate the Cougs. FlatStickPub.com. Paul Sorensen, All-American Safety at Washington State. You can follow him on Twitter, Paul Sorensen28. Jim Moore, the go-to guy. Follow him on Twitter at Cougs Go. We bring you in another edition of Old Crimson. We weren't with you last week because it was a bye. Now we're back here with you. Boys, how are you? You look rested and refreshed, Paul.
I'm sleeping in my van. This is an homage to Jim Moore and what he's going through right now.
Jim, did we find a place to live? For those who don't know, Jim is currently homeless and living in a U-Haul truck.
Yeah, that's it. No, things are going fine. We found a place to move into. We can move in later this afternoon. And my wife and I are just kind of winging it. We're retired and we haven't really stressed too much about it, but it seems to be working out.
Okay,
so, yeah.
Where did we land in Bend? What part of town?
We're still going to be in Northwest Crossing, which I'm not a big fan of because it's like the frickin' Medina of like Bend, and it's not me. And the other thing I'm worried about, you remember when my dog, when they swam after some geese and they were like killing a goose?
You're living right where that pond is now?
Yes. So,
boys, you really, Paul, you wonder who wears the pants in that family, huh?
It's not Jim Moore, I can tell you that right now. But best part of this whole thing, Jim, is you're close enough to your neighbors where you can take your dog on a walk and have them crap in the front yard still. So look at it.
Are you moving next to any Cougar fans? Do we know if there's any Coug fans there?
I don't know about that.
That like the Cougs minus 19 on Saturday.
I don't know about that, but I think it's kind of rich for you to be giving me a hard time about who wears the pants in my family when you call your wife the CEO.
Oh, I make it perfectly clear who runs the house.
Okay.
But I don't bitch and moan for 7 months where I live and complaining about it and going, God, I want to live out in the woods, and then you guys move across the street.
Wait, but there's another comment that's really rich, okay? You've bitched and moaned about living in Ballard for more than 7 months.
No, that's Seattle.
Okay, whatever.
I mean,
look at Paul Sorensen. Look, okay, wait a minute. Okay, check out. There's 3 faces here. Okay, Sorensen's happy as shit being in Spokane. I'm happy as hell being in Bend, and look at you. You're fucking miserable there.
No, well, I got the kids. I can't leave. Can't leave.
Yes, you can.
I can't. No, I gotta let. I'm not gonna pull my kids out of high school. I think it's funny to listen to you complain for 7 months about where you live, and then you moved in the same neighborhood.
We are fixing those grumpy old people on the Muppets. You know that? We are those old farts that sit there and go in the kitchen, point fingers, and blame everything. And man, if we regressed. Wow.
Well, no one knows who the Muppets are. Like, if you're not, 45 or older, no one knows your reference.
Google the Muppets and look at the old people. You'll see.
All right, I want to talk about the Fresno game here. Now, I missed the first half, and I always like this little exercise because I didn't see the first half live. Was coaching football, got back, watched the second half, but I was watching people like going back through like social media and Twitter and even the text threads like with my buddies. Everybody bitching and moaning about how the team was in the first half. I watched the first half and I go, Jesus, they didn't play great, but if I'm going to sound like a Husky fan here. If they didn't throw an interception at the end, they're going to score 20 points in the first half. They're going to put up over 400 yards. And, I think a miscue here, a miscue there. And, they offensively, they're going to be fine. That didn't, Paul, happen to be the case. Clearly, they throw another, or Mateer throws another into the half interception that we'll get into in just a second. We'll talk about his play. And then the third quarter happens, and it's a weird third quarter. And they just they get out of sorts offensively, and they go away from the running game. They sneak out a victory, Paul, and that's all that matters. They won the game. They didn't lose, but there were some issues in there. So you'll take it, but what was your takeaway from the game and just overall of how they performed against Fresno?
Fresno's hard to beat in Fresno. They're 17 and now 5 in their last 23. They don't lose very often down there, okay? And I appreciate what you said, Puck, from that perspective. Here's another little interesting thing. They have coaches on their sideline like we have coaches on ours. They picked up some hand signals that WSU was using on wide receiver checks, quarterback to wide receiver. Free safety on that interception right before halftime saw the route based on the hand signals from the quarterback to the wide receiver, slid over a couple of steps, made that great pick in the end zone. That's coaching. That's the level of acumen that these teams have as they pick that stuff up. So you better change and readjust your things because those coaches are looking for those little leads that can give them a difference on that. Wasn't a bad throw, probably the right read at the time. Free safety made a better play, even though he had a wide open receiver underneath on about the 12-yard line. That's where Mateer needs to get better. He's got to do a better job of reading for the open receiver and not forcing a football. That's 2 picks going into halftime at both Boise State and Fresno State that cost Washington State points.
Jim, what was your big takeaway or takeaways from the game on Saturday?
Yeah, we were just lucky as hell to win that game. You look at it, Fresno State had all the momentum. They were driving. They were ahead by 1 at the time. And I thought, okay, well, they're going to score here. They're going to go up 8. I hope we come back and score and get a 2-point conversion and force overtime. That's what I was thinking at the time. And then all of a sudden, O'Connor comes up with that interception, the pick 6, and everything just changed just like that. And Puck, you and I talked about it off the air before. I thought we should have been more aggressive at the end of the game. And I understand that, boy, you don't want to put Mateer in harm's way because he might throw a pick and when you're trying to close out the game. But still, I didn't like letting Fresno State have a chance being 8 points down to come back down the field and maybe score a touchdown and get the 2-point conversion. We maybe could have lost in overtime. So I would have taken my chances with Mateer and let him go a little bit and maybe learn from that. But in hindsight, it could have cost us the game if he'd thrown a pick or something like that. But I just wish we'd been more aggressive at the end of the game.
Paul, let's jump into the Mateer discussion. It's been kind of whatever channel or group that you follow that talks Cougar football. It's been a big talking point, post the Fresno State game. There's a faction of a fan base that wants him benched in favor of Zevi Eckhouse. Probably is. Hold on, give me a second. There is no bigger support. I've been beating Mateer's drum forever. I will, though, acknowledge last 3 games he has not thrown the ball well from the pocket. And really, maybe for the whole season, he hasn't really executed as well as he can in this offense. But the last 3 games, Paul, in particular, he's under 60%. He's 58%. He's got 4 picks. He's thrown 6 touchdowns. I thought he looked hesitant, not wanting to run the ball as much against Fresno, and it looked like there was opportunities to go. His receivers don't help him. They drop some balls, but he had guys wide open on Saturday and was just either throwing it in the dirt over, mailing it over their heads or behind them. It's, the protection was there, Paul. That didn't seem to be an issue, which has been in previous games. What did you see from his performance, and where is he struggling at right now?
Well, a couple things. The protection was very good this past weekend. They graded out the offensive line the highest they have all season. S.A. Pole, the little left tackle guy, here's a little quote, a little stat that's kind of cool. 253 pass blocking snaps, 0 sacks, 5 pressures, none of those in the last 2 weeks. This offensive line, couple things are getting better, okay? You saw the running back, specifically, we know who, Mr. Freshman guy that needs to get the football more, and that would take a little bit of pressure off. And here's the other thing for Mateer. You're basically, what they're doing defensively that I'm seeing, first of all, they're spying him, and what that means is they've got a defensive player, whether it's a tackle or a nose guard or a middle linebacker or a nickel or even a corner, that are basically responsible for Mateer if he breaks the line of scrimmage. So they're keeping an extra person in the block. They're doing what Washington did back in the day, where they're getting a good push up the middle, and they're slow rushing on the outside to keep him in the pocket to make him harder to run. So he's got to have good fundamentals and good mechanics, Puck, to step back. There are guys that are open. He also throws the ball at kind of a 3-quarter throw. He drops down, so that can sail on you, depending if you don't have good footwork. And when his ball has sailed, it's been because he's moving his feet. He's not set. He's trying to roll. He's trying to make some things happen. People are open, but you also have drops on the top of that, and you have pressure that's trying to take it away and make him look, bad. And he has the last couple of weeks. But if I remember correctly, they're 5-1. Okay. The last quarterback after 6 games, I can't think of the last QB. Cam Ward didn't do it. Jack Thompson didn't do it. Drew Bledsoe didn't do it. Let's see. Tim Rosenbach threw 24 interceptions his first year. Paul Menke threw 6 in 1 game. There's a lot of things. If you go back and look historically at Washington State quarterbacks 6 games into it, we're dog crap. So give the guy a break. Let him work on the mechanics. It's a work in progress. But I want to see this football team throw the ball out in the flat, get the football out there, run the thing you guys hate the most with your bubble screens. Just get the ball to the running back in the flat. Do some things to make these defensive chase you. That will open up stuff in the middle. That's my tirade, and I feel better now.
Paul, or Jim, time for a QB change? Zevi time. Zevi Eckhouse.
Well, you could talk me into a quarterback change with the Seahawks. I'd be all in on that, because I need the $250 from you when Sam Howell takes over after Gino continues his struggles. But I know this is a Crimson and Gray podcast here.
It's called Old Crimson Podcast.
Okay, whatever, Puck. Jesus Christ. Okay, so I screwed that up. Anyway, no, I don't want a quarterback change. You've been talking about Mateer for seemingly like decades, and I love that kid. We're going, however far we go this year is with John Mateer. It's not going to be with Zevi, whatever his name is, and I don't want to denigrate that kid, but I mean, I'm all in on Mateer, and I'm okay when he throws an interception, he makes a bad pass here and there. I'm going, well, okay, it's a work in progress, like Paul said. What is this? That was his 6th start in Division I college football. So I'm okay with him, and I just the versatility that he gives us at quarterback. I don't know if Zevi can't run like that. I don't think.
No, and again, he can't throw. I mean, I watched 1 scrimmage, okay, but I at least read enough and talked to enough people to hear about his arm strength. I mean, one issue that they've had with Mateer, right, Paul? Maybe you have more on this. Is that he hasn't been able to the offense hasn't been able to strike downfield. Eckhouse doesn't have an arm. Like, he's not going to throw it past 20 yards. So a deep threat game won't be there with him.
I disagree on that. Eckhart can throw the ball. I saw a couple 40-yard throws. He's very accurate. Doesn't have the arm strength and the zip that Mateer has. He's actually better at throwing on the run than Mateer is. Mateer's better when he steps back and that ball comes out. Mateer tends to airmail it when he gets on the run, where Zevi doesn't really have the strength to throw that deep out, the deep corner, those kinds of things. So he's better on the run that way, and so you've kind of got an interesting mix there. And Williams and Huston, those 2 receivers, and they got the other kid back. Was it Hernandez? I think that was his first game.
Carlos Hernandez, yep.
And he had 1 catch and he dropped it. He had 1 drop. So, in fact, it's interesting. 7 drops in that football game, 220 yards, just where it hit the guys in the hands, and they dropped the ball. So you add 220 yards in that offense, you're probably not talking about a crappy day from a tier. So it's a full, all-on, 11-on-11 responsibility for that offense to get after it. And if the guy drops the ball, if the quarterback doesn't get to the guy, if the offensive line doesn't protect, and they can't open holes for the running backs, you're going to suck. And yet they're still 5-1. So big picture stuff in this thing, hardest part of the schedule, they've kind of managed. Now they have to be, and this is the part that scares me, is this is usually where Washington State loses a game they're not supposed to against teams that they're better than. And pretty much from here on out, they're better than everybody they're playing. So that means you got to go out and win the game.
Yeah, you know what concerns me about that, Paul, is if we do drop a game along the way here, whether Dicker can I know he can properly motivate his team, but will they be listening? Because what are we exactly playing for if we have 2 losses? Like, you can convince the kids if you just have 1 loss that you can maybe get into that college football playoff, though we know. And you know, it makes sense to us because if we ended up running the table from here, our only loss is to Boise State. They might be a top 10 team by the end of the year. But I just worry, like, if we were to drop kick one to Hawaii or Utah State or something like that, whether he would lose those kids' attention the rest of the way, like what happened last year.
No, I would disagree on that, Jim. And the reason I would disagree is the culture that Dickert has built with these kids. They're one, and this is coach speak out the ass. But it's one game at a time. It's 1 week at a time. When we played, we weren't thinking about the 5 games down. We were thinking about who we were playing because you're so focused on that with everything that takes place for that week, with all of the game planning and all the film you watch and all the practice stuff you do and the different routes and all the different things. You're not thinking about what the hell's going to happen against Oregon State or Wyoming at the end of the year. You're thinking about Hawaii, who, by the way, sucks when they come over to the mainland in terms of playing football, so they're not very good when they travel. When they're in Hawaii, they're really good. So this is much better for Washington State to have Hawaii at homecoming, and that's why you've scheduled teams at homecoming that you can actually beat. They should beat Hawaii and beat them significantly.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're right. I don't know. It's a pretty good defense. I think they're going to win the game, but I don't like 19 points. I think it's going to be a closer game in the fourth quarter, how they play defensively.
I agree. Yeah, I'd agree with that, Bob.
But I mean, you're right. I mean, them traveling they clearly are, a much different team playing over there than they are playing at home. All right. What about? I've also heard this chatter, Paul, that Jake Dickert doesn't know how to hire assistant coaches. That Ben Arbuckle. that Ben Arbuckle should be relieved of his duties immediately. Thoughts? Then
just point me in the right direction of the person that said that, and there'll be a nut kick coming forth.
Okay, we're going to nut kick that person. Okay.
As opposed to a throat punch, I'm going lower now. That person doesn't have a clue about coaching and all the other things. Let's see, your defensive coordinator spent time at Auburn and Boise State. Those are pretty decent programs. Arbuckle's young and upcoming. They had 3 different coordinators at Western Kentucky or wherever the hell he was, the Hilltoppers, whoever those guys are. And they had one of the best offenses in the nation, the year that he left to come to Washington State. So he's doing some things and working on trying to get Mateer, in terms of being in lockstep and getting this offense. Plus, you've had some injuries at tight end. Tight end has been an important piece for this offense. They really haven't been able to utilize because they've had guys banged up and, situational kinds of things. So I'm really happy with where they're at, at 5-1. I'm looking at the defensive side and going, what games has the defense contributed that have made a difference in winning this football game? Washington might be 1. Texas Tech, in terms of thank God they didn't have that running back, that was 2. And then this last game against Fresno State, you got an interception from your free safety late. You got an O'Connor 60-yard interception return that basically won it. You did what you needed to do. You gave up some plays. You kept them kind of between the 20s. But when it got right down at the end, they put pressure on the quarterback and they won the football game. And they did it defensively. But they at least have an offense that can score points, unlike Hawaii that can't get out of their own way.
Yeah. I just think that, I'll have this concern. And Jim, you probably have this concern as well. I just have seen the 3rd or 4th straight game against a Mountain West team that pretty much physically up front pushed you around all game. And I cannot, Like that's such a huge problem, right? I mean, Fresno that running back got 120 yards on the ground. It was easy for him.
Yeah, it's and then you go into every game now too, where the Mountain West teams want to beat Washington State and they want to beat Oregon State. You just look at it, so they're going to have more incentive. I don't know, Paul. Maybe I put too much into the intangible part of it. I worry too damn much about the Cougs anyway. In fact, right now what I'm worrying about is trying to figure out how to get the CW network because I still haven't done that yet. Apparently, I need to get YouTube TV as opposed to YouTube or YouTube Plus or Premium or whatever
it's just YouTube TV. That's all it is.
YouTube TV. How much is
YouTube?
What does that cost?
Like $70, $80.
Okay, so
it's not regular YouTube. It's just called YouTube TV.
How the hell is cable living on the back of the U?
Yeah. Can you get it in the U-Haul or?
Probably have to stick the antenna out the window.
Before we get a practice report from Jamie Vinnick, one criticism I would have for Dickert, it would be this. Now they've avoided this is that if they lost that game, the same narrative about they cannot figure out after buys. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think they were all that prepared after the bye. I mean, they were lucky to win that game. They really were. I think there were some questionable coaching decisions by Fresno State and all that, but they ended up winning the game. What I don't understand, and I will never understand this, why any team is going for 2 points that early in the game. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's reckless. I think it's poor coaching. I think it's bad. You don't need to be going for 2 there. It does not make any sense. That means you chase points all game long. And it almost, Jim, bit him in the ass. Because instead of being up 9, they're only up 8. So,
yeah, but Puck, isn't that easy to say in hindsight? Like,
no,
if they
it's
had
not.
made that,
no.
They probably practiced that all week, and they were all excited to trot it out there, and they thought, it worked great in practice.
It makes no sense to go for 2 there. There's nothing that tells you show me the algorithm that tells you go for 2 there.
Well,
what is it?
Well, I don't know. Maybe they're worried Janikowski might miss.
Maybe he's getting tired because he's going to do all the running and kicking. He needed a nap. He was worn out from the flight to Fresno.
So it's not a problem for you guys. You guys like going for 2 like that. Then why not just go for 2 on every play and don't kick it?
It didn't really. I mean, it looked ridiculous. I mean, it was like, God, the circus came to town on that play, but
it almost cost them the game.
It didn't even occur to me later on like it has occurred to you.
Well, Jim, if they'd kicked the extra point, they're up 2 scores.
No,
the field goal, the game's over. They're not going to win.
Yeah, you make a good point there.
But instead of, you let them back in, and I don't understand it.
I'll say one thing on that, Puck. They went with a feeling they felt they saw something on film that they could attack with that play. Did they execute well? No, it's horseshit. It was a bad look.
Well, their special teams has been a problem all year long. You want to talk about replacing some special teams people.
Is our punter still hurt? What the hell's wrong with our punter anyway?
He's supposed to be good. He's supposed to be coming back this week.
He's going to red.
Are you sure?
There's a chance it's going to happen. If he's not playing this week, he's redshirting.
Okay. Well, you know what? We've got on the line. We got Jamie Vinnick from CougFan.com. who's going to answer that very question. We're going to find out from the great Jamie Vinnick. Jamie Vinnick from CougFan.com is with us. Jamie, what's the deal with the punter? Is he going to play this week? Paul thinks they may redshirt him. What do you know?
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with Paul. Unfortunately.
Way to go, buddy.
I think at this point you're looking at there's 6 games left in the regular season. Are you going to have him healthy for those 6 games? I mean, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense. And I think, quite frankly, Janikowski's done a fine job. I mean, he averaged over 50 yards a punt this past weekend. I just don't know if I don't want to say there's not a point because I think he's a great punter. But I tend to think that you rest him 2 more games, you play him the last 4, and then once you get in the bowl season, that doesn't count. You can play as many postseason games as you want. It doesn't count towards those 4 games. So I tend to think, and again, who knows? Maybe he's ready to go, but they've given it a shot. Dickert said, he's improving, but at this point, does it make more sense hey, let's rest him against Hawaii. Let's rest him against San Diego State. Have him for the last 4 games. Have him for the postseason. Have him next year.
All right, Jamie, you want to hear what if Dickert asked me what they should be doing offensively, would you like to hear what I would tell him?
I would love to hear what you'd tell him, Jim.
Okay, the other running backs besides Parker, Puolasi, I can't even pronounce their names. I mean, and Schlembaker, he's back. I know Payne's hurt. Why can't we just give the ball to Parker every time? Why can't we just have one back out there? He's clearly better than the other kids. Why don't we just see what you have with him for an entire 60-minute game rather than shuttling guys in all the time?
Well, I think the big reason why is I think there's 2 reasons. I think first off, I don't think he's quite adept yet to running between the tackles. I don't think he's quite has that power back build and that power back mentality like a Puolasi, like a Schlenbaker. I think that's where they have value is, hey, it's 3rd and 1. We need, 12 inches. We need 6 inches. One of those guys is probably a better chance to get that 1 yard running inside. Now, when it comes to, the outside, the outside zones, the off tackles, absolutely. I think Parker should be more involved. I think he certainly needed to be more involved than he was on Saturday. The other problem is that he's 18 years old. I don't know if he's necessarily ready to take on 25 carries a game. I mean, keep in mind, this was a guy who wasn't even the feature back at his high school really until his senior year. And even then, it was a lot of 10 to 15 carry games. So I think the big reason of why there is so much rotation is I think in part because Schlenbaker and Puolasi are better in those short yardage situations. They're better blockers. But I think Parker will wear down. I think we saw that against San Jose State. He got 22 carries. Payne was in overtime because Parker was gassed. He had gotten, hit hard in that game. He was tired. He just doesn't have the stamina that a guy in their 3rd or 4th or 5th year might have. And I think that's why you're seeing such a rotation. I think there's a reason why Parker gets a lot of the early carries, and then you start to see the rotate because you want to have him in the 4th quarter. As we just saw on Saturday, having him on that last drive was huge. They gave him the ball. He goes 3 carries, 34 yards, gets him in a field goal range. So I do think there's still absolutely a role for Puolasi and Schlenbaker. I do want to see them give the ball to Parker more, but I think they're also being very careful in how they use him. They don't want to overuse him and have you get into the last 2 games of the season and he's got nothing left.
I'm happy we don't have to talk about kicking or offense anymore. I'm going to focus on the defensive side, Jamie. Love what Durant did with that key interception late. Love that O'Connor baited the quarterback because he got burned on that route early, but he saw the same route a couple of hours later, came off his guy, slid right underneath and housed that bad boy for 60 yards. Defense won that football game. It wasn't offense and it wasn't special teams. Special teams weren't bad, but it really was defense that made the difference. What are you seeing on it that you like moving forward, knowing that they have teams now that they're going to match up very well with?
I think the thing I really liked about this last game was that they adjusted defensively. I think you see the long touchdown on first down or in the first drive, and it's like, oh boy, is this going to be a repeat of San Jose State where you give up 52 or Boise State where you give up 45? And then from there, they had one more touchdown, and they came on a short field. I thought Jeff Schmedding did a great job adjusting the way that they got after the quarterback. The big play that I've cited this play a few times throughout the week. They bring 4 guys, but they drop the edges into coverage. They bring the linebackers. That's the play that Keith Brown forces the grounding. So different looks, and I think Schmedding realized, hey, we're not going to just win one-on-one matchups. We don't necessarily have the Ron Stones, the Brennan Jacksons. They're going to take on a tackle one-on-one, beat them clean, get to the quarterback. So what do you do in that situation? You bring 4, but you bring them in a different way. You bring 5. You bring 6. I think the last play of the game, they brought the linebackers, and they added that sort of pressure. So I think Schmedding deserves a lot of credit for that adjustment because I think on the first drive, it was 4-man. It was one-on-one matchups. Guys didn't win them. You just don't have those type of – and Gusta's getting double-teamed in there. That doesn't help. But, between the edges and whoever else is playing defensive tackle, you just don't have the high-end talent to win a one-on-one matchup right now. So take away the one-on-one matchups. I'd still like to see them blitz out of the secondary a little more. I was watching a lot of the Boise State-Hawaii game, and I think Boise State does as good a job as anyone as getting their nickels, getting their safeties to the quarterback. We saw that live and in living color a couple of weeks ago when their safeties were giving John absolute hell because they're coming untouched in the blitz, and they can keep up with him, and they can bring him down. So I was definitely pleased with the defense. I think the coverage was better as the game went on. I think the tackling, still not perfect, but a lot better, and yeah, it helps when you're not facing the Heisman front runner, but I think, they tackled poorly against Portland State too. So I think you saw some definite strides from the defense. The big thing now is you've got to be able to stop the run better. I think that's the next thing they've got to figure out because, Elijah Gilliam can't go for 120 yards against you. You can't allow that to happen. That's a guy averaging 3.5 yards a carry. He averaged 6. It was his first ever 100-yard game, and he's in his fourth or fifth year. So that's the next step to me. You've started to find solutions to tackling, to getting to the quarterback. Now you've got to stop the run because teams will exploit that.
Yeah, I mean, it just that performance. You're going to hear a lot that Hawaii can't run the football. Paul, you touched on it earlier in the show. San Jose State couldn't run, and they ran all over them. I mean, so it's like, I don't care what these guys are averaging. Yeah, I'm with you, Jamie. Hey, just one last one for me, and then do we know anything more on the schedule next season? I mean, it's kind of set. They're going to open up against Idaho, then it's San Diego State, North Texas, the Apple Cup once again September 20th. That's where it's going to be from now on. They'll go at Virginia and then at Ole Miss. What else are you hearing on the schedule front?
It's not anything specific. Again, they keep that all pretty tight and under wraps. I think based off what Dickert has said, they're getting close on some other things. I mean, you have to eventually get that schedule finalized. I think that I don't necessarily know if there's going to be a lot of other high-profile games, but I don't think they're suddenly going to fill out the schedule with, 7 FCS schools or 7 schools that no one's going to care about playing. I think you might see some unique programs, and it may not just be, here's 5 more Mountain West schools. So I think that maybe this is kind of a year where, you can experiment a little bit. You can have some fun playing some of these teams that you wouldn't traditionally play, and it adds a level of intrigue to the fans. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. That Ole Miss game is going to be extremely tough, but it's going to be awesome for the fan base to get to go to Oxford, Mississippi. That's a game that everyone circles. Virginia, is Virginia a high-profile, big-time ACC team? No, but it's a Power 5 team on the road in Charlottesville. Obviously there's going to be a lot of storylines when you come to talk about a North Texas team. And then you've got, Idaho, who is as terrifying as any FCS team because of what they have been consistently doing to FBS teams. I mean, you go back to X's first game when he gave Wazoo a scare, and then you look at what he did against Oregon a few weeks ago, and we see how good Oregon is. So I think that'll be a tougher game than anticipated. Obviously, San Diego State, the Apple Cup's going to have a lot of emotion in it, especially being at home. So I do think there's some intrigue to the schedule. I don't know any specifics on who they're going to play, when, where, et cetera, but I do think it should start to kind of come to public eye sooner rather than later, because, again, they've got to get this finalized. People want to buy tickets and so on.
You're the best, Jamie. Jim, you got one more?
Well, I just got a quick one with Boise State, common opponent. Washington State played them. Hawaii played them. Any thoughts on which team gave Boise State a better run?
I think it's tough in the way, because one game was in Boise and one game was in Oahu. And I think Hawaii is a tough place to play. You've got 3 hours ahead. It's they're always tough. They're always physical. They're always fired up to be at home. I mean, they did as good of a job as anyone has done on Genti this year, and he still went for 210 and averaged 7 yards a carry. So I think you could probably say Hawaii played him a little tougher. I mean, they both lost by 21, but Hawaii, both teams went into the fourth quarter down by a score. Hawaii was down 6, Wazoo was down 4, and then it just became a matter of Boise State has more durability, and they've got the best player on the field, and they just feed him and feed him and feed him and feed him. The one thing I look at is Boise State completely discarded both offensive lines, and that's because they blitz like crazy. Everyone talks about how much this should be 7-0 Huskies blitz. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. But Boise State, I mean, Danielson blitzes non-stop, and we saw how much that affected the Cougars. It also affected Hawaii, and I don't think Hawaii has a great line necessarily, but I do think that you can probably glean some things from the Wazoo game, and honestly any game against Boise State, and say, this is the best player in the country. He is doing this to everyone. You put him up against Georgia, he's going to do the same thing. So, I think Hawaii deserves credit. They contained him, but they also had absolutely no ability to get any offense going. And under Timmy Chang, they've been serviceable at home. I think they're 9-9 now. They got one win on the road under Chang. came over to win Nevada last year. So I think there's something to be said about the location. If Hawaii goes to Boise State, that's probably a 40, 50-point game, to be quite honest. And that's not a knock on Hawaii. It's just that's how poor they've been on the road and how good Boise State is at home. I mean, there is truth to that. It is difficult to play on the road. I mean, we've seen it across the country this year. Good teams go into, Alabama goes into Nashville and loses to Vanderbilt. Good teams go on the road and they lose. I mean, Washington's undefeated at home the last 3 years. They haven't won it away from home this year, and that includes a 20-minute drive to Lumen Field. So I think Boise State deserves credit for winning on the road. I also think if those locations are switched, we're talking about different games.
All right, Jamie, go read all of his work up at CougFan.com. We appreciate your time, your service to this show.
Of course.
And we will talk to you next week. Thanks, Jamie.
Yep, sounds good. See you guys.
All right. There he is, Jamie Vinnick from CougFan.com. I think the beard has grown even more, Jim.
Yeah, that's a picture of a hobo right there, isn't it?
Hey, stop
I
it.
love Jamie. I love the look. I wanted to ask him how long he's been growing that beard, but I refrained from doing that.
He has a home, Jim.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, he does. I know. That's pretty rich of me to be calling him a hobo.
He does. I want to go back to your running back thing, Jim. Statistically, he is the main running back. It's not close. He's got 74 carries on the year. Pelosi's got 20.
No, I like what Jamie had to say about between the tackles. Maybe you want to give it to one of those other kids, but God, Parker, I think, can do the same thing. Like that 3rd and 1 at Boise or whatever it was.
I disagree with him on that.
But Parker, I was in the corner of the end zone, so I couldn't quite tell, but it looked like he wriggled, far enough to get that first down.
It was a first down. It was a first down.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, so I think you can still get that 1 yard from him, but you can also get the home run from him.
Well, I will say this, and to me, it was fairly obvious. I think to anyone that watched the game, and this, Paul, where I would level some. That's not criticism, but I would just ask if we had Ben Arbuckle here on the show. I'd ask Ben Arbuckle this. It is clear that they run the football, especially with Parker, much more effectively when they run out of the pistol. Yeah. It's not a debate. You can just watch it because this is why I disagree with Jamie, that he is a down the hill runner. I think he's actually better between the tackles than those other guys. I think Pelosi's good and so is Shenbaker, but I think Parker is more than capable of doing it. And just out of the pistol, he's way better. When you put him to the side and they try to run the read zone, I don't like him in that spot. He's not quick enough laterally to bounce it to the outside. And so I would just say to Arbuckle, when you run it, you can run the air raid out of the pistol. The running back doesn't need to be to the side of him. I would be in that look almost all the time.
And I would agree with you. I think that's a great observation, Puck. And it's the only one.
Football mind, Paul. Football mind.
The only one you've had in the last 6 weeks. So it's nice to see you actually contributing to your own show.
That's
so congratulations on that. 5 yard difference between 8 yard difference on the pistol. You're 8 yards deep. It's the old USC kind of I formation deal. And what happens is it allows your offensive line to kind of get out in front and screen. Then the running back has a chance. Allen was great at this. He wouldn't hit the whole full speed. He would just kind of sit behind it, wait for the offensive lines to make their block. And they weren't blowing guys up. They were just screening people off. And then he'd cut right off their butt and would either cut back, get upfield. But it seemed like he was doing 4, 5, 6, 7 yards every time. Well, that's what Parker's doing. He's doing the same thing. He's getting those reads. And when he gets outside, he's kind of a beast on the end to bring down one-on-one. So I think that's a great observation by you. And I would agree. I think they went away from the run too early in this football game and started to throw too much. I didn't like that.
Because Jim, like you watch it in the first half, Parker was effective in the fourth quarter, but in the first half he was getting yards. But then for some reason, Arbuckle in the third quarter just said, I'm just not going to run the ball anymore.
Yeah, I don't understand why Paul called it a great observation, not once but twice. It was a good observation. I've heard better observations from other analysts, but, to call it great and to call it great twice, that's going a little too far.
I know you're jealous. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Is it not clear that Parker's the best damn running back we have, and it's not even close?
Yeah, but that's
I mean,
why
I don't know about formations and what we should be running out of. But when that kid gets the ball, it appears that he gains more yardage than the other kids.
I know, but that's why I brought it up. Like, I think you think they're like splitting their reps. They're not. He's decidedly the number one running back.
And he's not even on the depth chart I was looking at. They got Schlumbaker as the number one guy. And I'm like, what? No,
but what I'm saying is, but I know, but like they're telling you he's the number one back. It's not close in terms of carries. He has 54 more carries than the other running backs. There's no running back split. I think you're upset about something that doesn't exist is my point.
I think I complimented you and he didn't. Remember, the difference between a brown noser and a shithead is depth perception. Never forget that, okay?
Hey, Paul, this is the same guy that you're giving the great observation compliment to who bet on the Huskies last week, okay? Can you give him some shit about that?
Wow.
Reverse jinx, Paul. It worked.
I did the same. Hey, man, I did the same thing down Sacramento State. I wore their colors. I've been wearing their colors, and they hadn't won a game since August.
Reversey jinxy. It works every time. You bet on your rival, and they get fat and happy, and they lose. So you should thank me. All Coug fans should thank me.
Jim's not.
Yeah,
not a true Coug. Not a true Coug when you bet on the Huskies.
I take one for the team. He actually believes that. Yeah. That's what's unbelievable.
Yeah, but boy, you know about that pistol though. That was impressive.
Well, I need to explain it. I need to explain it because I know that when I said pistol formation, you were like deer in headlights, wondering what does that mean.
Hey, explain this, okay?
Yeah,
can you explain that? You go.
I'm just trying to help you out. I'm trying to help you out understand football.
We're going to listen to Moore talk about gambling when he was 1 for 85 in the NFL on Sunday.
Yeah, well.
Oh, my God. If it weren't for the Cougs covering this, I mean, the Cougs are keeping me afloat, Paul.
Well,
buyer beware.
We're able to contribute to your outstanding habit of gambling on the weekend.
Now, hey, Jim, Paul's going to hate this next question, okay? So he's going to hate it. But you're going to appreciate it because you know it's reality. All right, where's the next loss? Because you know they're going to kick a game. Because I had this conversation with buddies playing golf this weekend, and we were like, "Oh, you think they can run the table?" And we all said, "Well, they can, but you know they're going to stub their toe somewhere. Where are they going to stub their toe?"
Well, why would you bring that up, though, Puck?
Because we talked about it already, so I thought I'd bring it up again.
All right, fair enough. Paul's studying where we're going to lose.
I'm trying to figure out who's playing. So you got.
I think we lose at New Mexico.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to ask the game. If I had to pick one out of the box, I would say New Mexico's because go, where the hell is it?
Really? 2-4, New Mexico?
That's the kind of team that, Washington State has laid an egg on in the past.
Arizona beat them like by 40.
Hey, remember the last time we played in New Mexico?
They beat them in the Big Sky. And they were favored by 13.
Yeah.
There you go.
New Mexico, huh? All right. Okay. Well, hopefully they don't stub their toe.
Oregon State's the one that we could drop. We could drop that one for sure.
Oregon State in Corvallis, they're probably, it's going to be a really close favor, don't you think, Jim? I mean, that's a tough game, even though they were so beat up against Nevada Reno. And what was up with Choate, the head coach at Reno, throwing shade on the Pac-12?
I get it though, because Nevada's angry that they were left behind.
Okay, well that makes sense then.
But I would say that I think for a head coach to act like that is, yeah.
But if you know Choate, you would understand why he's that way.
Is he a Coug?
Oh hell no, no. I don't know where he went to school.
I thought he had some Cougar ties. He has Boise ties, right? I know he was at UW for a while.
I think he's a Boise State guy. He coached at Washington State for a year.
Yeah.
So, he's a St. Mary's guy, grew up in North Idaho.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. He was really fired up about beating Oregon State, and they had like 10,000 players out of the game. Whatever.
Hey, what are you hearing about our crowd this week? I know Dickert, he sounds like he's disappointed that we haven't sold out yet, and I just can't imagine that it's going to sell out for Hawaii, even though it's homecoming.
I mean, are you asking me or Paul? I'm sure that the attendance won't be good.
Why? Why? You have a 5-1 team. It's homecoming. You're at home. The weather's it's not going to be like it is right now. It's going to be a little bit colder. So, see, that's the part that just pisses me off to no end that we look for, all these excuses when things don't
I
go
agree.
well. Support the goddamn football team. How about that? When they're winning, go to the freaking games, man. It doesn't matter. I want to hear excuses about driving over from Seattle or soccer games or your daughter's freaking, birthday. Figure out a way to go to the games. There's only 7.
Well, there are, but you would say that's a shot at Jim and me. Hold on, but there are people. I mean, people do have lives. I mean, and if it's you're coaching your son or daughter's team, then I mean, you're
then don't.
what?
Then don't say anything if you're not all in.
Well, what do you mean by don't bitch though? I don't think anyone's bitching. I just said that I don't think it will be a well attended game.
It's too far. It's too expensive. I can't do it. I have too much stuff going on.
Well, I agree with you on the it's too far or that excuse. I mean that one actually is a perfect game to go to. You could
and then throw in the Vantage Bridge situation too.
Well, that's not helping things by shutting it down to one lane. Well, I mean, I did it this summer and it took 7 hours. So I mean, it's miserable.
The sad part about this whole thing, it's usually the opponent a lot of the fans like to go see. And in the Pac-12, you'd have the UCLAs and the USCs and the ASUs.
Well, that's
now you've got the New Mexicos, you've got the Hawaiis, you've got the Utah States. So it's not the same opponent. I get that, but we don't care about the opponent. Let's care about the team. Let's support the guys that are down there.
I hear you.
Go through this BS because no fault of their own, they got left on the island waiting for a ship, and the ship sunk. So go support the football team. Put your butts in the seats and don't bitch about it.
I agree with all that. I just would say that there are some real life things that come up for people,
and that's fair. Life gets in the way. I get it, but you can't put 32,000 people in that stand. In those stands for 6 or 7 games a year, really?
Yeah.
I set records at Boise State and Fresno State the last 2 weeks. People that are seeing, because now they're supporting, they want to see this team coming in, and they're going to see Washington State, which is the same problem we've had back in the day, because everybody wants to see UCLA or Arizona State or Oregon. So I guess
I think it's easier in those cities though, Paul. I mean, those are bigger cities. I mean, like people live there.
Fresno, Puck? I mean,
well, people live. I mean, Fresno's bigger than Pullman. I mean, people live. I mean, and Boise, people live in Boise.
That's always been the problem.
Yeah.
That's always been the problem with Pullman. But we've always figured out a way to get over the top of it. And when the basketball team started winning, guess what? They filled up easily. Okay.
Sure.
Well, Washington State's winning. They're 5-1. Doesn't matter. They don't have a choice on who they're playing. They're a good football team. Go support them. And I don't want to hear any excuses about why. Just do it.
Well, I won't be there. I have to coach football.
That's fair. Okay.
I'll be down here in Bend, Paul, hoping you're not angry at me while I'm trying to find the CW with that streaming bullshit.
You're sleeping by the river, so I'm going to cut you some slack on that. You have like an inflatable air mattress you can sit on and float down the river while you're looking for a place?
And Paul, life's getting in your way too. You're an Eastern Washington analyst. And so you've been to one damn game this year, and I've been to 2. So there.
Phone while I'm doing the game. How about that? I'm broadcasting and watching the Cougs at the same time, so I don't want to hear any bullshit.
Well, la-di-da.
I get paid by the way, so it's just not fun. About that.
Yeah, why don't you don't do the Eastern games and just go support your school?
Oh, let's see. Cougs First, Cougar Collective. Let's see, First Team All-American.
But they kind of handed out All-Americans back then, didn't they?
When I get my knee replaced in January, is that supporting the team? How about that? Should we throw that one out there? How many concussions have you had, Puck? Yeah, support the team there.
What? What did you say? I didn't hear you.
I love it when Paul gets irritated.
I'm still in. You are a great Coug. No, I'm just giving you shit.
He's angry because
I don't know. If you were a better Coug, though, you'd be at more games.
That we can't support a football team that's busting their ass against all of this crap that's been built up against them.
And I do have season tickets, and that is a donation to the school.
Kind of.
Through the 1890 club.
Hey, thank you, Jim. Now you didn't go last year, so there you go. See, you saw the light. Well done.
I sold my tickets to someone who made a donation to the collective.
See, and that's
I've been on the Cougs every week.
Well, yeah, okay.
That's just like donating to the collective.
I'm not betting on the Cougs this week, though. I'm with you, Puck. I don't think we cover the 19.
Nah, that's too much. Stay away from it.
Well, anyway, I apologize to everybody for being grumpy, but
For what?
For the attendance thing. That really bothered me.
No,
Don't apologize, Paul.
You're good. You're passionate about it. All right, that's it. Old Crimson in the books. We'll see if they can get it done against Hawaii, and then they will return to action after taking on the Warriors. It's all brought to you by Cougar Collective. You can join the collective today. Best way probably is join the 1890 Club, like Jim Moore. $18.90 a month. Again, cougarcollective.org. And then, in fact, you can actually click on that QR code that's on your screen if you're watching, and that will take you right to the donation tab. Also, big thanks to Flat Stick Pub, Cougar owned and operated, 6 amazing locations across the state: Kirkland, Pioneer Square, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. They've got you covered for date night, guys night, ladies night, large group event, great for kids. Of course, great place to watch and celebrate the Cougs. FlatStickPub.com. Go and please like and subscribe here on YouTube. Leave comments. Also, check it out on Apple and Spotify, all the podcast platforms, and of course, pucksports.com. Also, keep an eye out for Cougs Corner. This week's guest, wide receiver Kyle Williams. Great kid. Just an absolute great kid. If you think you're going to get X's and O's football like for 25 minutes, there's like 5 minutes. We talk favorite food in Pullman. We talk what he's going to do after he's a criminology major, what he wants to do after football, growing up in L.A., having dogs chase him, the debate of why anyone would be a Clippers fan. He's a Lakers fan, and then Kobe versus LeBron. He's just a fantastic kid. Real fun interview there with Kyle Williams. All right, boys, we'll talk next week. Another edition of Old Crimson. Thank you.
Go Cougs.
Okay, go Cougs.
If it's fun you desire, it's fun you're going to get at Flat Stick Pub. It doesn't matter what the occasion is, whether it's date night, guys night, ladies night, or large group event, Flat Stick Pub's got you covered. They have 6 great locations across the Pacific Northwest, from Pioneer Square to Kirkland, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. All locations offer the best pub experience in Washington. 2 rules at Flat Stick Pub: drink local and have fun. Pretty simple. So if you like to have fun, love local beer, and great tasting food, make Flat Stick Pub your next spot. Visit them at flatstickpub.com.